A painful tale of a pregnant schoolgirl, revealing the truth about a deceitful millionaire. The sharp, sterile smell of antiseptic hung in the tiny clinic, mixing with the faint buzz of fluorescent lights above. The room felt like a refrigerator, yet Ava Parker burned from the inside out. She sat rigid on the exam table, fingers laced so tight her nails bit into her palms. The white walls felt too bright, like they were closing in. Across from her, the doctor, a middle-aged woman with gentle eyes, set a chart on the desk and let out a small sigh. "Ava, congratulations. You're 6 weeks pregnant." The word struck her like a fast-moving train. Her lungs forgot how to work. Her vision smeared. A high ring filled her ears. She must have heard wrong. "No, no, that can't be," she whispered, shaking her head. The doctor's look softened. "I know this is a shock, but the test is accurate. You are pregnant." Ava's stomach lurched. Her trembling hand reached for the paper the doctor slid toward her. Proof in black and white. Her name, her age, the gestational period. It was all there. "No," she croaked, throat tightening as panic climbed up her chest. Her breaths came in short, messy bursts, her heartbeat pounding so loud it drowned out everything else. This couldn't be happening. This wasn't happening. She slipped off the table, grabbed the edge for balance. I have to go." The doctor stood, concerned, flickering. "Ava, wait. You don't need to decide anything today. Talk to someone first." But Ava wasn't listening. She snatched her bag and pushed through the door, barely hearing the receptionist call after her. The slap of cold evening air did nothing to cool the storm inside her. She was pregnant, and she knew exactly who the father was. She walked without aim through the city, fists wrapped around the report, tears blurring streetlights into smears of gold. Her mind spun and dragged her back to the memories she'd worked so hard to bury. Victor Langford. The name once meant safety, praise, and trust. Now it tasted like poison. A powerful, older millionaire who had mentored her, who had been generous and protective, who had fooled her. The signs had been there. How his hand lingered on her shoulder a little too long. How his compliments drifted from calling her brilliant to calling her beautiful. How he kept testing the line, inch by inch. Then one night, he didn't just test it, he crossed it. Ava squeezed her eyes shut, wishing the images would vanish. They didn't. They dug in like thorns, reminding her of what he took. Her innocence, her trust, control over her own life. And now she carried his child. The thought twisted her stomach. She couldn't have this baby. She shouldn't. But the second she thought about it, a sharp ache cut through her chest. Her shaking hand pressed against her belly. Life was growing there. Part of her wanted to deny it, erase it, pretend it wasn't real. Another part, a small, strange voice deep inside, said she couldn't. If she gave up now, Victor would win. She couldn't let that happen. She needed justice. She needed him to answer for what he did. Wiping her cheeks, she turned back toward the heart of the city. There was only one place to go, Victor's estate. Tonight, she will face him. The iron gates of the Langford mansion rose like black ribs against the sky as Ava stood outside, breath shaking but steadying. She had walked through these gates many times before, never like this, never with a secret heavy enough to crush a life. Part of her begged her to turn around, to pretend none of it was real. But it was real. She took a breath and went in. The moment she stepped inside, the scent of polished wood and expensive cologne filled her nose. Marble columns stretched up toward the glittering chandelier. It was all as she remembered, but the warmth she once felt here was gone. "Ava," a smooth voice rolled down from the grand staircase. She looked up. Victor Langford, in a tailored suit, silver hair, combed to perfection, face calm and measured. Something pinched in her chest. This was the man who'd once called her brilliant, who'd acted like he believed in her. Then the memories flashed, the touches, the whispers, the lies, and the pinch exploded into rage. She clenched her fists. "We need to talk." Victor studied her face with those sharp, weighing eyes. Then he offered the kind of smile that never reached his gaze and motioned toward the sitting room. "Of course, dear. Let's talk." The room was too perfect. Artifact from a life that always wanted more. Ava sat across from him while he poured scotch, the ice clicking softly. "So," he said, leaning back, smooth as glass, "to what do I owe the pleasure?" Ava swallowed a breath. "I'm pregnant." The words felt foreign in her mouth, like they belonged to someone else. Victor's hand paused midair, the crystal glass just a touch too tight in his grip. Shock flickered across his face. Real shock, then vanished. He set down the drink, tipped his head, voice almost bored. "And it's yours." Silence filled the room. Victor let out a quiet chuckle, like she'd told a harmless joke. "My dear, you don't expect me to believe that." Ava's nails dug deeper into her palms. "I'm not lying, Victor." He watched her for a long heartbeat, then sighed and stood, adjusting his cuffs with neat, practiced fingers. "Let's say, for argument's sake, that you're telling the truth," he mused, pacing slowly. "What do you want? Money? An apartment? A settlement to keep this quiet?" Her stomach turned to ice. He wasn't surprised. He wasn't even angry. He was calculating. She was a problem to manage, a stain to cover. "You don't care, do you?" she whispered. He finally looked at her, and the mask fell away. The warmth disappeared, replaced by something cold and cruel. "Ava," he said, flat as stone, "I never cared for you the way you imagined." The floor seemed to tilt under her. He took a slow step forward. "You were fun," he added, lips twisting. "Young, pretty, naive." The world blurred. Every moment she believed him. Every time she thought he was a good man. It all crumbled. "You use me," she choked. He gave the smallest shrug and took a sip of scotch. "As I said, fun, but not special." Tears burned, but she refused to let them fall. She'd come for responsibility, for truth. Instead, she found who he really was. And now she knew what she had to do. Victor Langford might think he could walk away, but she would make sure he wouldn't. Night pressed heavy around her as she walked home, mind racing, hands shaking, not from the cold, but from betrayal. He tossed her aside like nothing, like a game piece he'd finished with. She had one person left to turn to, her mother. No matter what, she hoped Mom would see her pain and hold her up, because if she didn't, Ava had no one. The smell of cheap coffee and floral perfume met her at the door, a scent that always felt safe. Tonight it stung. Her mother sat at the small kitchen table, frowning at a stack of bills. She looked up, her face softening for a second, until she saw Ava's tear-streaked cheeks and strained shoulders. "Ava," she asked, careful, "what's wrong?" Ava swallowed. She had practiced on the walk home, but the words felt too big. Still, she had to speak. "Mom, I'm pregnant." The silence slammed down, thick and choking. Her mother blinked once, twice, waiting for the punchline that didn't come. The chair screeched as she stood, her face twisting with shock and disgust. "What did you say?" Ava flinched but stood firm. "I'm pregnant." Her mother stared for what felt like forever. Then, slap. The hit spun. Ava stepped back, cheek blazing, heart cracking. "You stupid girl," her mother spat. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" "Mom, please, you've ruined everything." Her mother snapped, voice shaking with rage. "Do you know what people will say? Do you know how embarrassed I'll be?" Embarrassed. The word landed like a stone. This wasn't about Ava's pain. It was about what people might think. Tears rose hot. "I thought you'd help me," she whispered. Her mother let out a bitter laugh. "Help you? Help you do what? Be a teenage single mother?" Ava's hands flew to her stomach. "I'm keeping the baby." The words leapt out, and as soon as she said them, she knew they were true. Her mother's face darkened. "No, you're not. You're getting rid of it." Ava shook, but she shook her head harder. "No!" Her mother's palm smacked the table. "You think I'll let you disgrace this family?" she hissed. "You think I'll let people talk about my dumb daughter ruining her future? Mom, please." "If you don't get rid of that baby," her mother said, voice gone cold, "you're not my daughter anymore." Ava froze. The words cut deeper than any slap could. Tears spilled and wouldn't stop. She had nowhere else to go, but she had already lost so much. She couldn't lose her child, too. She lifted her chin, though her body shook. Then I guess I don't have a mother anymore. Her mother's eyes flashed. The next thing Ava knew, she was shoved out the front door. You made your choice. Live with it. Her mother shouted as the door slammed. Just like that, Ava was alone. No home. No family. Only the baby inside her. The wind bit her skin, but it wasn't as cold as the empty space where home used to be. She hugged her thin jacket close and kept walking. She had lost everything. She would not lose this child. Neon signs flickered above as she sat in a cramped, low-lit cafe, hands wrapped around a cup of lukewarm coffee. The last few days had ground her down, homeless, abandoned, shaken, but not broken. If Victor Langford thought he would walk away clean, he was wrong. With stiff fingers, she scrolled through her phone, digging up old texts, emails, photos. Anything that could stand as proof. There they were, messages from Victor. Some subtle. You're special, Ava. Different. Some not subtle at all. Don't tell anyone about us. They wouldn't understand. And the worst, promises to take care of her. Lies, all of them. Her stomach rolled, but she didn't look away. This wasn't just about her anymore. How many other girls had he done this to? How many stayed quiet? She would not be one of them. She drew in a long breath and tapped a contact. Maya Collins, her best friend from high school, the one person she still trusted. Maya, I need help. Maya's apartment was tiny and messy, piled with books and old takeout, but Ava felt safer than any place in days. Maya listened, eyes wide and face pale, as Ava spilled everything. The affair, the manipulation, the pregnancy, the confrontation. God! Ava! Maya whispered, rubbing her forehead. That man belongs in prison. Ava let out a dry laugh. Tell that to the cops. You think they'll believe me over a billionaire? Maya frowned, thinking, maybe not the police, but the press? Ava hesitated. The press? Maya grabbed her laptop. I know someone. Ethan Cole. He's an investigative reporter. He's been trying to expose powerful creeps for years. If anyone will hear you, it's him. Ava's heart kicked faster. A reporter meant reach, power, danger. Victor would destroy her if this got out. But if she stayed silent, he would only hurt the next girl. Ava clenched her jaw. Call him. The next evening, Ava sat across from Ethan Cole, a tall man in his 30s with sharp eyes and a cool, measured tone. Let me get this straight, he said. You're accusing Victor Langford, a respected business figure, of seducing and impregnating you. Ava held his gaze. I'm not accusing. I'm telling you the truth. Ethan leaned back, arms crossed, studying her like a puzzle. Do you have proof? Ava pulled out her phone. One by one, she showed him the screenshots, texts, emails, photos. She watched. His face shift from doubt to unease to something harder. You're not lying, he muttered. No, she said, voice shaking with anger and relief. Ethan rubbed his chin. If we publish, he will come after you. He'll deny everything, sue for defamation, try to ruin your life. Ava set her shoulders. He already ruined it. A quiet pause. Then Ethan gave a short nod. All right, let's bring him down. Her phone buzzed nonstop the next morning. Half asleep, she thought it was Maya or Ethan. Then she saw the alerts, and her heart stopped. Headlines blazed across her screen. Tycoon Victor Langford accused of seducing and impregnating 18-year-old. Power mogul faces explosive allegations. Victim speaks. He manipulated me. She scrolled, hand shaking. The screenshots she'd given Ethan were everywhere. Texts, emails, photos. It was real. The world knew. There was no taking it back now. By noon, the storm had turned into a flood. News shows debated it live. Forums and comment sections exploded. Some people stood with Ava, calling her brave. Others attacked her, calling her a liar, a gold digger, a fame seeker. She tried not to read, but the weight of their words pressed down like a rock. Then came the legal blow. A man in an expensive suit knocked on Maya's door and handed over a letter, a cease and desist. Victor was suing her for defamation. Maya's hand shook with rage as she read. That snake is trying to shut you up. Ava swallowed. She had expected this. Victor didn't let scandals sink him. He crushed them, and she was his problem now. But Ava wouldn't back down. She had already lost everything. She wouldn't lose her voice either. A few nights later, walking back from a convenience store, she felt it, eyes on her. Her heartbeat picked up. She quickened her steps, gripping her bag. She turned a corner. The shadow turned with her. Panic slid down her spine. She ducked into an alley, pressing against the cold brick. Footsteps followed, slow, controlled. A low voice came from behind. "Drop this, girl." Ice rushed through her. She turned slowly. A man in a dark coat stood a few feet away, face half hidden by the dim streetlight. "You don't know who you're messing with," he said, voice edged with threat. "Take back what you said about Mr. Langford. Or else." Ava's chest thudded, but anger rose hotter than fear. She lifted her chin. "I won't be silent." He stared, a hint of surprise in his cold eyes, then stepped back. "Suit yourself," he murmured, and walked away. Ava slid down the wall, breath shaking. She was in real danger now, but she still wouldn't stop. Victor Langford would not get away with this. Not again. Days bled together. Victor's face was everywhere, every channel, every feed. The scandal had blown past anything she imagined, and yet he was still free, still powerful, still untouchable, until her phone rang with a number she didn't know. She answered, cautious. "Hello." A rough, older voice replied, lined with years and something that sounded like rage. "Ava, my name is Nancy Hale. I used to work for Victor Langford." Ava sat up, pulse quickening. "I have something you need to see." The cafe was nearly empty when Ava arrived, a quiet corner spot where the hum of the espresso machine covered small talk and secrets. She spotted Nancy Hale right away, a woman in her early 60s with tired eyes and a posture that said she carried too much for too long. As soon as Ava slid into booth, Nancy pushed a worn folder across the table. "It's all there," she said, her voice rough but steady. Ava opened it and felt her stomach twist. Photos, email printouts, copies of wire transfers, notes in Nancy's careful handwriting, names, dates, hotel logs. She wasn't the only one. "I was his assistant for over 20 years, Nancy said, staring at her cooling tea. "I saw things I wish I could forget. I kept it quiet because I was scared." He made sure we were all scared. Ava's hands clenched around the pages. "How many?" Nancy swallowed. "Too many. Some younger than you. Some with fewer choices." He paid people off. He threatened careers. He hid it behind charities and the clean press. Anger burned through Ava's fear, hot and steady. "Why help me now?" Nancy met her eyes at last, guilt and resolve mixing in her gaze. "Because you fought back. I should have done it years ago. I can't carry it anymore." She leaned in. "If you want to end this, you'll need more than screenshots. You'll need a map of how he operated. Start here." She tapped the folder. "And there's more where that came from." By the time Ava reached Ethan Cole's office, the air felt charged. Desks buzzed with ringing phones. Reporters spoke in fast, clipped sentences, and a corkboard near the back held printouts in red string like a movie about a conspiracy. Ethan waved Ava and Nancy into a glass-walled meeting room. "Let me see," he said. They spread the folder across the table. Ethan's cool stare sharpened line by line as he read. "These are internal memos," he murmured, tapping a page. "And these transfers, shell companies routing hush money." Nancy nodded. "He used intermediaries. He kept dirty work 2 hands away. But I handled schedules, travel, and special arrangements." "I knew." She swallowed again. "I saved what I could." Ethan scribbled notes, jaw tightening. "This is bigger than an ugly scandal. This is a pattern. Payments, cover-ups, gatekeepers." He looked up at Ava. "If we run this with Nancy's testimony and your proof." "He can't cry," he said. She said, "Any more." Ava's throat felt thick, but she nodded. "Do it." Ethan's voice turned firm. "Understand what happens next. The pushback will be fierce. He'll hire the best lawyers. He'll try to bury you in court. He may try to scare you." Ava thought of the man in the alley, the shadowy warning, the way fear slithered under her skin. She straightened anyway. I'm not backing down. Nancy put a hand over Ava's for a second, a small, steady squeeze. Neither am I. The story dropped the next morning like a lightning strike. Victor Langford, predator exposed. Inside the millionaire's secret abuse network. Former assistant speaks. Years of hush money and cover-ups. Pattern of coercion. More women step forward. The article laid out Nancy's records, the payments, the travel schedules, and Ava's story in full. Her name wasn't blurred. Her face wasn't hidden. She refused to hide anymore. By noon, everything exploded. Langford Holdings stock nosedived. Investors fled. The board called emergency meetings and released a cold, careful statement about serious allegations and independent review. Legal experts argued on TV. Survivors groups rallied online. While the noise climbed, Ethan's phone wouldn't stop buzzing. They're sending a formal denial, he said, reading off an email, and a threat to file suit against us. He glanced at Ava and lowered his voice. They're also hinting at a restraining order to keep you from speaking further. Ava's heart kicked hard, but she kept her voice even. Let them try. She didn't have much left, but she had truth, and now she had proof. Then it happened, the shift. More women came forward. Some used their names. Some wrote through lawyers. They shared dates that matched hotel records, messages that echoed the same phrases he'd used on Ava, and stories that felt sickeningly familiar. Every new account tightened the net. And for the first time since this started, the answer to the question, will they believe me, began to tilt toward yes. Days later, a line crawled across the bottom of a live news broadcast. Breaking! District Attorney opens formal investigation into Victor Langford. Ava sat frozen on Maya's second-hand couch, hands wrapped around a mug she'd forgotten to drink from. Maya pressed the volume up with shaking fingers. The anchor's voice was calm, precise. Authorities confirmed that evidence supports claims made by multiple victims and a former employee. The investigation is ongoing. Maya let out a breathy laugh that sounded like a sob. He can't talk his way out of all of this. Ava nodded, though her chest still felt tight. She had dreamed of this moment and feared it at the same time. Once the law stepped in, things could move fast or crawl slow. But at least, finally, someone besides her was carrying the weight. The next days stretched long, but crackled with new energy. Lawyers argued on camera. Langford's publicists tried to paint the story as baseless and politically motivated. Commentators fought about blame and proof and power. Ava kept her head down, attending meetings with Ethan's legal team, answering more questions, signing more papers. Sleep came in thin slices. Food tasted like paper. But every time doubt whispered, she looked at the folder Nancy had given her. The lines of ink, the dates, the transfers, the parts of the truth that didn't bend. Then, one gray afternoon, a live feed flashed across every channel. Police officers walking a stone-faced Victor Langford in cuffs down the steps of a glass building. The headline screamed, Langford arrested on charges of abuse, coercion, and fraud. Ava's teeth sloshed as her hands shook. She didn't cheer. She didn't cry. She just sat still, breathing for what felt like the first time in months. Maya leaned against her shoulder. You did that, she murmured. Ava stared at the screen. We did that, she said softly, thinking of Nancy, of Ethan, of the other women who had finally spoken. Headlines rolled on for weeks. From boardroom to cell block, Langford's fall. Victims break silence. How money hid the truth until it couldn't. Ava's name spread everywhere. Some called her brave. Others still sneered and doubted. But the walls around Victor cracked, then collapsed. He lost his company. He lost the sheen that had protected him. And most of all, he lost the illusion that he could hurt people and walk away untouched. For the first time, he wasn't steering her life. Yet, when the noise died down just a bit, reality settled in. The world had moved to the next story. Ava still had a baby coming. No home, no steady income, no family to lean on. She put a hand on her belly and felt a small kick that reminded her why she kept going. I've got you, she whispered. I promise. Help came from an unexpected corner. Ava sat in a shabby coffee shop, counting the last few bills in her wallet, when her phone buzzed with an unknown number. She almost let go to voicemail, then swiped. Hello. A warm, clear voice answered. Is this Ava Parker? My name is Rebecca Sloan. I'm with the Aurora Foundation. We provide housing, counseling, and job support to women in crisis. We heard your story. We'd like to help. Ava closed her eyes as a wave of relief washed over her. Are you serious? Completely, Rebecca said. If you're willing, we can meet this week and go over options. Ava nodded so fast her head hurt. Yes, please. Thank you. For the first time in a long stretch of hard days, hope felt real, like something she could hold. Within a week, Ava had a safe room at Aurora's shelter, a small, clean space with warm sheets and a door that locked. She started therapy, sat in support circles with women who understood without asking, and cried in a way she hadn't let herself before. The foundation also connected her with a job at Justice Bridge Legal Aid, where she filed paperwork, answered phones, and greeted clients who carried the same kind of quiet pain she had carried. The work mattered. Every form she entered, every appointment she scheduled, felt like a small stone in a new foundation. The staff treated her with respect. They let her be new and strong at the same time. Slowly, Ava's days found a rhythm. Morning appointments, lunch at her desk, evening classes on budgeting and tenants' rights. She saved what she could. She learned how to breathe through fear. She laughed with Maya again. She checked in with Nancy, who was testifying, and, for the first time in years, sleeping through the night her son came into the world, rain hammered the hospital windows and thunder shook the glass. Pain swept through her in waves that felt endless. Nurses coached her. A doctor murmured calm words. Maya squeezed her hand until both of them ached. Then, all at once, a cry filled the room, loud and perfect. A nurse placed a tiny, wrinkled bundle on Ava's chest. He was warm and real and heavier than she imagined. Ava stared down, eyes flooding. Hi, little man, she whispered, voice breaking. He curled his fist around her finger, and something in her that had been cracked for months knit itself together. The past didn't vanish, but for a moment it faded behind the bright, sharp truth of his breath. I will love you, she whispered into soft hair. I will protect you. Always. She wasn't a frightened girl who had run from a clinic. She was Ava Parker, survivor, fighter, mother. The months that followed were not easy, but they were theirs. Ava woke to midnight feedings and early shifts. She learned how to fold a stroller with one hand and answer calls with the other. She budgeted every dollar, packed lunches, and bought diapers in bulk with coupons. Justice Bridge bumped her hours up as the office grew. The Aurora Foundation helped her transition from the shelter to a small studio with sunlight on the floor in the mornings. She painted one wall a soft color and framed a picture of her son's first smile. Therapy helped her carry the old scars without letting them run her life. Some days, grief and anger still rose like tides. But she had tools now. She had people. She had a reason to push through. One afternoon, she took her son for a stroll through the park. The sun washed the grass in gold. Joggers blurred past. A dog chased a frisbee. She paused near a bench, letting a warm breeze brush her cheeks. The past no longer felt like a weight that dragged her under. It was part of her story, but not the whole book. She looked down at her boy's bright eyes and gummy grin and felt a steady, quiet joy. For the first time since everything began, she believed, really believed, that they were going to be okay. News about Victor still popped up now and then. Court dates, motions, analysts debating how a man like him stayed hidden so long. Sometimes the coverage called Ava a hero. Sometimes the chatter tried to twist her into something else. She learned not to read the comments. When she did see her name, she reminded herself of what mattered. He was facing what he had spent years avoiding, and she had helped make that happen. She couldn't control the noise. She could control how she moved forward. At Justice Bridge, a young woman came in one morning, hands shaking, voice small. Ava guided her to a chair, offered water, and listened. The details were different, but the look, the mix of shame, fear, and stubborn will, was the same one Ava had once worn. "You're not alone," Ava said softly. "We'll take this one step at a time." After the woman left with a plan and a stack of resources, Ava stood in the quiet lobby, the light slanting across the floor. She realized that every form she filed, every person she welcomed, was a way to turn her own pain into something useful. In small, everyday actions, she was rewriting the ending. One evening, Maya stopped by with takeout and a silly balloon for the baby. They ate at the tiny table while cartoons burbled in the background. "You know," Maya said between bites, "if someone told me a year ago that you'd be juggling a job, a baby, and this whole new life, I'd have said that's too much for one person." She grinned. "But then, I remember you're not just anyone." Ava laughed lightly, a sound that no longer felt rare. "I'm not doing it alone." She thought of Nancy's steady hands, Ethan's stubborn pursuit of the truth, Rebecca's open door, the women in the group who shared their hardest days, the nurses, the lawyers, the friends. None of us are. A few weeks later, Ava stood by her window, rocking her son as the city lights blinked awake. She remembered the cold clinic, the marble staircase, the slammed door, the alley shadow, the headlines, the handcuffs. The girl from those days still lived in her, but she had grown into someone who could hold fear and hope at the same time. Strength wasn't the absence of pain. It was a choice to rise again and again. She looked down at the sleepy face against her shoulder and smiled. "We're okay," she whispered. "We're going to be more than okay." If this journey touched you, keep following along for more true-to-life stories told with heart. Like, share, and subscribe so you never miss the next chapter.